just start. So today it's quite packed agenda. So I would say we don't have much time to waste. We'll be very quick in terms of moving on to the next speaker. If we are able to run through our speakers, we should save some time and then have some questions at the end. So it's such an interesting topic. I mean, saline agriculture, it's a global concern and affecting food security around the globe. So, now is the time has started. So, okay, my name is Khalid Mood again, just here. And I'm the innovation manager here at Rothamsted in the UK. Rothamsted is one of the oldest premier institute in the world. I wear a couple of hats, but this particular hat, which I'm wearing, I'm part of Innovation Impact Lab, which is funded by EU. I have to recognize their efforts because they're paying my salary. So, and then in this program, Rothamsted is working with other partners, 7 other partners. University of Exeter, Met Office, University of Plymouth, and PML. And so this program is working. The whole idea is how we can look at the environment futures, how we can improve our, I would say, research and development to benefit the society. So today we have quite interesting speakers lined up for the program. So I will be, as I said, I won't take that long. I'll just shortly hand over the mic to Professor Dr. Iqrar Ahmed. But just to sort of run it through, we have got around 12 speakers today. So it's quite packed agenda for 2 hours. And then on average, each speaker is given 10 minutes, apart from our guest speaker, chief guest speaker is Dr. Ismahani from Biosaline Institute, Abu Dhabi. Just quickly say something about me and my institute. I won't go in more details, just say why this institute is quite interesting, because it's playing an important role in the global, I would say, food security. They started some experiment back in 1843. And that experiment is basically providing a huge amount of information and data that's feeding into the primary research, secondary research, and all the way to the farming industry around the world. And nowadays we're talking about the whole food supply chain and the talk around climate change. So they started experiment on crop nutrition. They included back in 1843, and that experiment is still ongoing. So it's 177 years of experiment that produced a lot of data. So data is available. If any one of you is interested in knowing more about this experiment, there's a whole archive of soil samples. They date back to 1843. You can have even grain samples and crop samples as well. And then Institute worked on I would say, the first phosphate fertilizer at those days. And then I would say you could blame Rothamsted helping, I would say, polluting the environment, but controlling pesticides. So the first parathride pesticide was developed by Rothamsted. And then I would say, sort of a herbicide, which was phenoxy acid, which was developed by Rothamsted as well. But in modern days, whatever we are talking about, the data science and AI and this whole sort of machine learning thing. So this work was done at Rothamsted by Ronald Fisher on modern stats. And the last slide, just sort of where do we work and how do we work? This is a particular farm which we have in the southwest of the country. It's called Northwick Farm Platform. It is one of the world's richest data-rich sites. It produces around 1 million data sets each year. And it has got, as you could imagine, the three systems we have at the moment, but we had 2 more systems. It's primarily working on grassland system, and where each flume, I mean, these are actually independent labs out in the field. And these fields are hydrologically isolated, where water is collected at one point and measured every 15 minutes to look at the loss of nutrients in the water, into the environment. And so this from here, I've just stopped. I'll just move on to our today's moderator, Professor Dr. Iqrar Ahmed Khan, who will be able to give you insight for today. Over to you, Professor Iqrar.
Thank you, Khalid. As you have already stated that we have a packed house today, so we have to be very strict to the timeline. May I request all the participants to mute their mics and cameras so that we could have a better quality We keep on hearing murmuring from here and there. Okay, coming back to the topic today, I am no expert in salinity, but I happen to have a lifelong exposure to that. I grew up in Scarp 1, and those of you who are aware of history of salinity in Pakistan, it actually, beside being an arid country, we also have a salinity history of waterlogging and salinity together. And the first vertical drainage program which was started by WAPDA was SCARP 1. And WAPDA did a total of 55 SCARPs. So I grew up in SCARP 1, so that's how much I know about salinity. Then when I entered into my professional career, we had Satyana project, which was a subsurface tile drainage program to get rid of water and to rehabilitate the affected soils. I went on for my graduate school to University of California, Riverside, and USDA Salinity Lab was part of the system. So USDA Salinity Lab I have seen very closely for several years. I went on to have a job for 11 years in Sultan Qaboos University, and I saw seawater intrusion in the Batna region. And at about the same time, ICWA was coming up. So I have seen ICWA come up very nicely. But then, as the fate would have it, I accepted a job for 2 years with Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, where Kausar Malik was my boss. And at NIAB, Kausar Malik was actually running a national program on biosaline agriculture. So I would say that this would be a befitting tribute to Malik Saab if we first request him to give the opening slides on biosaline agriculture in Pakistan before we move on to our international team for sharing their experience. So over to you, Malik Saab, sir. Enlighten us about your journey with salinity in Pakistan.
Thank you, Ikrar. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Could I share my slide?
Yes, sir, you can. Share the screen. It will come up. Screen share करें वो green वाले से.
Okay.
Bottom पे है.
Here it is. Is it visible now?
आ गई जी, आ गई. उसको आप जरा full screen कर लेना. आप अपनी तस्वीर जो है वो स्क्रीन जो है वो साइड पे है और आपकी तस्वीर जो full screen आ रही है.
Okay.
आप उसको.
All right. I just wanted to show you the landscape of a saline area, saline land, and I think Ikrar was talking about Scarp 1 and all those areas. This is a typical slide, and this is another shot. I just wanted to show to my other colleagues from abroad. How salinity in Pakistan looks like. These are all basically saline sodic soils. And we have, according to an estimate, we have about 14 million acres of such land. And out of these, about 3 or 4 billion acres are in the agricultural area. Other areas are, we normally call them Banjar Kadeem or wastelands, you see, But and this is another one. And you see, with all this, we have been trying to use these lands as a different ecology, you see, as a different approach. And our main focus had been to use the bad soil, that is the bad saline soils, and the bad underground water, which is normally brackish. You see, all the tube wells have been pumping out brackish water, which has aggravated the whole scenario, you see. This is, as you can see, we have gone into an integrated biosaline agriculture approach, which involves saline wasteland and a saline underground water. And using these two bad resources, we are trying to develop biomass, you see. And for this, we have been selecting salt-tolerant plants. We have been evolving these plants by using different techniques, and this is all R&D, which I'm sure many of my colleagues even now are doing research to put all these things into practice. You see, and this salt-tolerant plant had an effect on the saline soil. It increases permeability of the soil, stops erosion, improves environment, improves bulk density of the soil, adds organic matter, increases biological nitrogen fixation, and increase salt movement. All these parameters have been scientifically studied and published, you see, so we are quite confident on the science of it, you see. Our majority of our soils saline sodic, and they are also calcareous soils, you see. And our strategy, our technical approach has been to use that calcium carbonate, try to solubilize that calcium carbonate, and that calcium then goes on to the exchange complex, knocks off sodium, and improves the physical chemical condition of the soil. And keep in mind, all these areas are also monsoon areas, you see. So every year when the rainfall is there, it helps in the leaching of the salts if the calcium has been solubilized, if the calcium carbonate had been solubilized by the action of the roots of all these plants which are growing on such land. So the uses of this biomass, we have shown that it can be used as a fuel wood, as a timber, as a forage, or a green manure, or you can compost and convert it into biofertilizers. Then also paper, pulp, paper board, and biogas, all that alcohol from the biomass, you see, which is the second generation bioenergy, you see. And in addition to this, we have a aquaculture activity also. All these have been shown, demonstrated, and popularized in many areas, you see. And in order to feed into all this, we had gone a massive work on analyzing all the different plants for their salt tolerance, you see. And we had gone on to all, you can see all these, some of them are helophytes, some of them are salt tolerant, and all these are well-known: Suda, Ochia atriplex, Acacia atriplex, and Deptocloa is our baby, because that is a color grass on which we have spent a number of years looking at its rhizosphere and using it as a biomass for converting into energy. And this was the plant where we were the first to demonstrate that there is associative nitrogen fixation in this grass, because this has been growing very well without addition of any fertilizer or in a very poor fertility soils, you see. So anyway, these are some others. We have, I mean, these were all done under a hydroponic situation and grown up to maturity, you know. So this was a very well executed work, you see. And this work, I must mention it in the beginning, all this work has been done at NIAB, which is the Nuclear Institute for Agriculture and Biology, where Dr. Ikrar also served as the director. And then we have developed some suitable species for different kinds of soil. They are severely salt affected, partially waterlogged, and moderately salt affected. You see, so these are all different types of plants which we have been able to show and demonstrate, you see. Now, biosaline agriculture as a technology, we have shown that this aims to economically utilize salt-affected land and saline, that is brackish underground water, through profitable and integrated use of genetic resources, which includes plants, livestock, fish, insect, and microbes, and also improved agriculture practices. We assume that saline ecosystem as a productive resource, you see. Now, so this was the biosaline agriculture as a concept that we have been advocating. And just to give you a glimpse of the history, that we considered NIAB to be the pioneer institute where all this was developed, and when we started in mid-1970s, and the work continues even now. And the most interesting is that IAEA also sponsored a fairly large regional program, including about 9 countries, in which the NIAB was the resource institute, and it was led by our former Director General of NIAB, Dr. Mustafa Naqvi. And then we also followed up with, as Ikrar said, that we had developed a saline agriculture farmer participatory development project, which was executed in 5 sites, which included Balochistan, Nasirabad, Lucky Parvat in KPK, and Shorecoat and Odra in Punjab. You see, so these were all different sites where we had involved all the farmers, and it was a farmers participatory approach, and through which we tried to disseminate all the technologies that we had already developed at our biosaline research stations, you see. And so this is about, and then that was followed up by developing a national biosaline project, which was approved in 2008 to be implemented in 13 districts of Pakistan with the at a cost of rupees 800 million. So I would like to just very briefly go around, and this is our aquaculture is a very important intervention in all the saline sodic areas, and this one was I mean, we have been growing it, and now in the area of Shorecoat and all other areas, this has become very popular, and the farmers who have a small land holdings can go into aquaculture, and these are with the brackish underground water also. So this is becoming very popular, and these are some of the, I will share with you some of the crops that we have been growing. This is brassica. This is again a luxuriant growth of colored grass. This is sporobolus. This is eucalyptus, which is, and these are Acacia nilotica and Acacia amplicep. Acacia amplicep is again a very useful legume because it is a good fodder, and also it is a good source of honey, you see, because its flowering is very attractive to the honeybee. And this is all this we have been able to demonstrate on our experimental stations, you see. And these are Atriplex, which you probably know is a halophyte, and it is also growing. So this is about it. I just wanted to tell you that all these areas we have also demonstrated their economics, you see, that how all these products can be converted into an economic value, you see. All this work had been done at NIAB, and while I was there, and the work still continues, and we are happy to share all the knowledge. And that was also the time when ICBA was being established, you see. So we are all witness to the establishment of ICBA, and I personally welcome the Director General of ICBA, who I'm sure is participating in this webinar. So thank you so much for your attention, and I am grateful for this invitation. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much. You have put the ball rolling, and we are grateful. And I think I would like to add that you had also added other elements of vertical integration, which was raising goats on ampliceps.
Yes.
So in addition to biomass, there is value addition. Okay, I think Khalid and I agree that we request the DG ICBA now to make her presentation. DG, please. Ma'am, we welcome you. Please take over. Okay.
Now, Chris, do you have any? Yes.
The slides are visible. We are waiting for your voice.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay. Yes, please. Welcome.
Hi. Do you hear me? Okay, sorry, I was muted. I was talking. I was just saying thank you very much for the invitation to take part of this Comstech virtual seminar on saline agriculture. Thank you very much for the long-term collaboration with ICBA. And it is really a pleasure to be with you today to complement the presentation that was presented just a few seconds ago by Dr. Malik. So to go on the same flow as Dr. Malik, the soil salinity, it's really a global perspective and the global problem. You mentioned it very well. I think both Pakistan and many of the countries, hopefully, that are with us today live that problem day to day. In the global scale, the issue is increasing. And the scary part is that we don't know how big it is. We don't know really how, we don't really grapple of how much saline water we have, nor saline soils, nor how much it's increasing. We started a partnership with FAO to update the global soil map, salinity map, and hopefully it was supposed to be finalized end of 2019. We got a bit delayed because we are collecting data from all the countries. And also capacity building to all countries to give them the capacity to really map well their own soils. But really what we know is that it has been growing very, very badly in the last 30 years and that we need to understand it better. So hopefully very soon we will have that map ready and we could really have a baseline that we can monitor the progress. When you talk about salinity, there is salinity in the soil and there is the salinity in the water. And if we look at planet Earth, and you are the expert in the subject more than me, we do know that if we're talking about saline water, then we have no limitation at all, because the majority of the planet Earth, it's saline water. It's 96% it's saline water. And hence, if you couple that with what are the needs for in terms of food security globally, you realize that with the focus right now on only few staple crops, even if we increase dramatically the productivity, it would never be enough. So even in the best scenarios, whereby you increase the productivity of the major staple crops in the arable land that we have, we are still going to be short in terms of food security. And that's why for food security purposes, we do need to think about alternative water, particularly saline water, to be able to produce more with less fresh water, basically. And of course, as mentioned before, all the kind of alternative water that we can use, be it seawater, be it produced water from mining services, be it treated wastewater, be it drainage water, all of these are very important. And they are important because we have the shortage, but also because we have to go and produce in non-arable land. Arable land is demanding in terms of input, but also not so much demanding in terms of input, but in terms of adaptability to certain crops. And hence, if we want to go to marginal environments, the way we can develop a new food system is to go back to agrobiodiversity and to use species and plants like the one you mentioned, Dr. Malik, that maybe used to be very important, but have lost their importance in terms of the international market right now. And here I'm bringing just some numbers, but I'm sure you know them all very well, whereby we have almost 500,000 species, or right now we say 400,000 species, but unfortunately out of those 400,000 species, we are talking only about 6 species that give us 60% of our needs. And also we have only about 125 species in the market. So thinking of 400,000 in the nature that Allah has given us, and us focusing only on 125 doesn't make sense in many ways. So for us at ICBA, the combination of neglected underutilized species with the alternative water will provide us a solution to have agriculture in marginal environments to contribute to food security, nutrition security, water security, and income securities. We're talking about 4 securities that are very, very important. And those crops, just to add to some that Dr. Malik talked about, but also he mentioned Dyslactis, for example, he mentioned buffalo grass, he mentioned Acacia amplicippus. So what we are doing ourselves at ICBA here, we have been at the beginning working a lot on feed, on forages, but then over the years, we have also looked into some salt tolerant crops and abiotic stresses tolerant crop, particularly heat and drought, in the food as well. So we have been working on permallate and sorghum with Icrisat for almost the last 20 years. We have been working on barley with Icarda, but also with Montana State University and Few and Coast and so on and so forth. So, and quinoa with Peru, Chile, and Bolivia, and with FAO particularly. So we are looking at different species with different levels of salinities, either for feed, food, or for biofuel as well. And the most important when we talk about new species, other than their salinity tolerance, it's really how could you make them part of the food system? How could you take them up to being used either as a feed, be it used as energy, or be it used as a food? And for the food, particularly over the last, I would say, 4 years, we have been really looking and working on the value chain, how we develop quinoa to be part of a food system in Morocco, for example, where we have quinoa to do couscous and local dishes. How could we take saliconia that is irrigated with seawater or desalination brine from desalination plants to make either crackers or juice or cakes and so on and so on and so forth. So it's very important that we think value chain, because if we don't think value chain, it won't take the scale that we need in order for us to impact positively food security in the developing world. So just to sum up, and I think here we are all a crowd of scientists that believe in it. So we're almost preaching to the converter, but it's always good to really remind people that the saline agriculture or biosaline agriculture is very, very important for 5 main reasons. The first one, it releases pressure on good quality water and on land resources. And that could help other sectors to develop that cannot do it with saline water, like industrialization or urbanization. The second one, it utilizes poor quality water and land resources, which is particularly the same. It releases pressure and use those resources. It provides a new source of food, feed, biofuel, and fibers. I always tell people, if you are in arable land, maybe you don't want to produce millet, or maybe you don't want to produce quinoa, for example, because maybe your maize or rice or wheat is giving you good income. But when you are in a very marginal environment where those crops will give you almost very little, then you go to those other crops. It does generate employment opportunities, particularly for rural youth and women. And it helps communities to mitigate and adapt to climate change impact. I didn't talk much about climate change, but by default, most of those neglected underutilized species that we are mentioning in this seminar, it's mostly they are very nutritious and they are very adaptable or have a resilience, which make them very adaptable to climate change. And with that, it's a pleasure really to be with you. Thank you very much for your attention and looking forward really to strengthen collaboration with the whole comstech community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Very elaborate and very crisp presentation. Our co-host Comstech is represented here by Dr. Khurshid Hasnain. I will request him to say a few words before we move on to next technical presentation. Khurshid Hasnain.
Thank you, Dr. Ikrar. It's a pleasure to be here amongst the experts in this area and to welcome all of you as a co-host of this activity. Let me introduce Comstech, though some of you, of course, must be familiar with Comstech, having been involved with activities of Comstech. Others probably need to have a little reminder as to how who we are and how we operate and what prospects there could be for participation of Comstech with other institutions in this very important activity on biosaline agriculture and the various ways in which we can contribute to it. So as you're aware, the OIC is there, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which has, of course, a large number of areas of interest. And one of those is primary areas is science and technology. So the Comstech as the primary body of scientific cooperation for the OIC was established in 1981. And so since then, it has been operational. It has its secretariat located in Islamabad, and the President of Pakistan is the chairman of Comstech. Comstech's mandate, as you may be aware, is basically to strengthen cooperation among the OIC member states in science and technology and to enhance their capabilities through various modes of action, through trainings in emerging areas, and through follow-up actions on various projects, and to implement the resolutions of the OIC that pertain to science and technology. Furthermore, we draw up programs and policies as well as the status reports on various aspects. As I will go on previously, the emphasis was more on the analysis of what is going on, but in recent years, we have moved into the mode where we are also directly involved in organizing projects and activities. Some examples I will present to you in the area of interest currently here. So in doing this, we operate in partnership with our various other institutions of the OIC, and this includes the various. Is there a problem here? Can you see me? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can see you.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I thought maybe the sound was not coming out clear. So I was mentioning to you that Comstech works through partnership with various organs of the OIC. For example, the ICESCO is there, and the CESRIC is there, and we have a food security organization. I'll talk about that in a little bit, IOFS, and similarly other international organizations like parts of the UN cooperate with us. The Islamic Development Bank is a major supporter of some of our past and current activities. We also have cooperated and worked together with WHO, EMRO, the Eastern Mediterranean Regional Office of the WHO, and similarly, the TWAS, Third World Academy of Science, has been a long-standing partner. So, along with general activities, I would like to mention now also the fact that in 2017, the OIC held its first Science and Technology Summit in Tashkent. So what is important there is that this summit approved a 10-year program, which is called the STI Agenda 2026. So it outlines, it identifies a number of priority areas in which the OIC countries are expected to invest more seriously, to cooperate more readily, and to develop along the lines suggested as a guideline, as a way of progressing economically as well by utilization of various parts of aspects of science, technology, and innovation. So this agenda, amongst the various priority areas that it has, also, of course, looks at food security as a primary priority area, confronting food security and nutritional security of the member states. So Comstech has, through this angle, become involved in certain activities in trying to promote the capacity of our member states in food, in securing or ensuring food security. And I'll mention that in a while. Comstech has a number of networks. These networks are located in various countries, each in one country. They relate to things like information technology, they relate to water resources, they relate to oceanography, they relate to virtual universities, some relate to biotechnology and genetic engineering, and so on. So, of course, we did have a network in Saline Agriculture. It was acronymed INBA, but it hasn't been very effective, hasn't been active for the past several years. So one possibility of our involvement could be, and we are trying to have this conversation with the host country about reactivating the Saline Agriculture network of Comstech. Now, to come to what exactly we have been doing over the past few years, we're trying to the modest efforts that we've made. I've been involved with both of them, so I'll just relate to you. The first one related into Comstech and the food security related projects was related to gene banks and new varietal developments. So this was a major concern of our that we had countries which simply are not able to preserve many of their existing species, and whichever new varieties were being developed as more suitable varieties given the climate or given the nutritional aspects, or not being adequately or mechanism didn't exist for their disbursement and incorporation in their food stream. So we have our partners in this activity as the FAO, and we have the Pakistan PARC Research Council and the NARC as our local support organizations. So accordingly, what we had was we began with a consultation workshop in which the idea was that we had various countries participated, and we assessed the extent of their genetic resources and their gene banks facilities, and what shortcomings existed in various measures of development of new species and the seed varieties and their dispersal and with the on the ground to the farmers, etc. So 5 countries participated in the actual deliberations in the sense of development of a proposal and presented their country. I think about 8-9 countries, in fact, presented their country status reports on the various aspects of the plant genetic resources. And then it was decided that we would move on towards the next level. And that next level was that we picked to try and develop a multi-country project proposal, which is titled tentatively, Promotion of Plant Genetic Resources, use, varietal development, and integration in the seed system. So the first of these workshops, consultation workshops, were held under the auspices of the FAO and Comstech in Islamabad, and then it was decided that the outlines of this project proposal were discussed amongst the countries. The countries concerned were Pakistan, Azerbaijan, Oman, Jordan, and later on Kazakhstan. So these 5 countries are participating in this. We held our second workshop in the same project proposal in Baku in 2019, in November. Again, these 5 countries participated, and Comstech presented the draft proposal, shared it with the member countries for their input. Their input was received, and then, of course, we had to work on incorporating the changes. Then we were set back because of the virus, and so we are still in the phase where this proposal is being considered by the various member states before we submit it to the donor agencies. We also interact with the BHBD, or the and Biodiversity and Health Big Data Alliance of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. And through their cooperation, we held the second annual Biodiversity Alliance meeting here in July 2019. And while Pakistan, Saudi Arabia were already members of this international alliance, we were able to include Iran and Malaysia as new members of the BHBD alliance. Another aspect of our new development has been our partnership with the IOFS, the OIC organ for food security, and in cooperation with them and with other partners in Dubai, we held the virtual workshop on the development of regional gene banks. So the idea is that we are focusing along with IOFS in how to have regional gene banks where individual gene banks are not available in several of our member states. So this was held in July of this year with partnership of the FAO and the Islamic Development Bank and ICBA. Our second initiative in the direction of food security is in the development of new varieties for stressed agriculture and crops, talent-resistant crops, drought-resistant, having higher nutrition value. Of course, that's more relevant to the theme of this discussion today. Initially, we had a workshop here in which we had some experts from various countries, including Mark Tester from Saudi Arabia, and NIPG, we had Shahid Mansour, and also Turkey. So these three countries then basically formed what we call a working group. This is how we basically operate, that we, after a workshop, we try to form a working group of various countries and experts, and then go on and take that development to the next level by writing proposals for further on-the-ground activities. So in 2019, we formed this working group for new varieties, and we held this international workshop with support of ICJEB and NIPJ, called the International Workshop on the Use of Genome Editing and Other New Breeding Technologies for Global Food Security. This was held in April of 2019. So going on with this activity, then comstech wrote a project proposal for the use of new breeding technologies for food and nutritional security in OIC countries. This is being funded by our partner organization, ComSec, which is the commerce organization of the OIC. And this again was supposed to start a little earlier on this year. We had delayed it, and now probably starting very soon in the end of this month. So this again is a project between Pakistan and Turkey, are the main leading countries in this project, which again will of course be able to involve the experts or trainees from various other OIC countries. So this is sort of the kind of thing that the way we are interacting in our way of developing the capacities of our member states through facilitating cooperation and coordination. Finally, recently, comstech has initiated a consortium of excellence, as it's called, which includes universities of the OIC countries who will host the students and the researchers in local institutions. It's like on a cross exchange of scholars and expertise between the member states. So far, Pakistan, of course, Pakistan has offered scholarships in various areas of agriculture and biosciences for the students of the OIC countries. We are hoping that other countries, the members also, will follow suit, and we will be able to have exchange of expertise between our member states. So that in a nutshell is how we are operating, and we look forward very much to receiving support and help from the various organizations participating in today. And if there's any way in which we can further promote and further help you to connect with other member states, please feel free to ask us, and we will be very happy to support any of your activities in this very seminally very important area of saline agriculture.
Professor Sinan, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's move on to next speaker, and I will request Dr. Khalid Mahmood now to introduce our next speaker. Khalid.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Khurshid, for giving an insight to ComSat's program. So this is where I think today's discussion is quite helpful to sort of open up opportunities for future collaborations. I'll just move on to our next speaker, Dr. Raghab from Center for Ecology and Hydrology from the UK. Dr. Raghab, please share your screen. Yeah, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and good day to everyone. I'm quite happy with the excellent information on plant side by Dr. Ismahan and Dr. Malik, because I would be only focusing on water. And why saline water resource especially? Because simply there is not enough really fresh water, and the fresh water represents only like 1%. Most of it is under the ground, represents about 200 years of rainfall. Why salinity really is important? Salinity has a negative impact and should be managed properly. And those impacts, it would cause toxicity of certain ions like boron, nutritional imbalance, and it can also reduce the growth and transpiration. The salinity of the water is classified between fresh, less than 0.7 deciments per meter, to moderately saline, to highly saline, until it is brine, which is above 45 deciments per meter, which is the salinity of the seawater. The management practices for saline water application would require suitable irrigation water management, suitable crops, and Dr. Ismahan, Dr. Malik managed to cover that, suitable soil management as well, and accurate estimation of crop water requirements and leaching requirements. The irrigation systems for saline water application is really quite important, how to select the proper system or suitable system. Drip irrigation, especially the subsurface, is known to be the best suited. Seasonal leaching is required. Sprinkler can cause salt accumulation on canopy and the leaf burn in sensitive crops. Low nozzles close to the ground would be better. Furrow, planting location is important. However, surface irrigation in general is not recommended for saline water. This is an example of furrow irrigation, and this is well managed, but this not well managed where you can see the salinity accumulated on the surface of the basin and furrow irrigation. Sprinkler irrigation, the high, the overhead, those above the canopy would produce actually salt falling on the canopy and burning the leaves. That's not a good idea. What's better idea is to have the nozzles of the sprinkler or the center pivot close to the ground. So when you irrigate with saline water or even treated with water, it doesn't really accumulate any salt on the leaves. Drip irrigation, also surface irrigation, can be harmful sometimes when you use saline water, as the salinity would accumulate on the soil surface, as you see on the top figure. We have been trying the subsurface irrigation, where actually the salinity is not really appearing on the surface. At the same time, really you minimize the evaporation and you get a better yield. We used a different technique as well by irrigating half of the root zone using twin drip irrigation lines. And instead of irrigating the whole root zone, as you see on the right side of the slide, we irrigate half with one line of drip at one time, and then the next irrigation, we irrigate the drier part. So that's really a cycle of wet and dry. This is the call it partial root drying method. And by this, we can actually alternate the wetting of the root zone of the two halves. And we actually use a twin line, as you see in the picture there, at 10 to 12 centimeters below the surface. And we save water actually. And we tried that in one of the EU funded projects, Water for Crops. And we were able to save 44% of water using that system compared to sprinkler, or 26% compared to the classical or traditional drip irrigation system. The field versus laboratory salinity is important for those who are using saline water, because the EC you measure in the laboratory as extraction of saturated paste. It doesn't really represent what's in the field. The salinity of the field is concurrent with soil moisture. It is like a twin value with the soil moisture. That salinity of the field is related to a certain soil moisture, but when you take it to the lab, you change that. And a lot of people that are using models, the models, they produce soil salinity level related to a soil moisture. Also, we have to remember the plant grows from close to saturation or field capacity to wilting point, where the salinity actually changes from within a big range. So that actually makes sense that you should monitor the salinity and the soil moisture together in the field. And that's example of the sensors we used, where you can measure the soil moisture and the salinity continuously in the root zone, and you can have a very continuous time series showing the salinity in connection with time and also with a certain soil moisture content. The strategies for using water of different qualities, most of people, they make simply mixing the fresh and the saline water, which I personally don't recommend. Sometimes they call it soil dilution by altering the good and poor quality according to the availability and the crop needs. And that might be a better option, where you allow some leaching between the irrigation with saline water. Cyclic and sequential management is also another option. This is one of the examples of sequential application of saline water, where you irrigate one plot of the land with saline water, collect that in the drainage system, apply it as irrigation to the next crop, which should be more tolerant than the previous one, and carry on until you irrigate with halophyte plants at the end, as the soil, as the water salinity will become higher as you go from one plot to the other. Leaching, there is abuse and the misuse of that concept. And leaching, when exactly and how, sometimes it happens because irrigation inefficient, sometimes happens because of the rainfall, sometimes you apply it seasonally after harvest or before sowing, and apply it after irrigation. And most of people, they add that automatically when they irrigate. And I don't think you recommend that unless the plant really showing some symptoms that the salinity is affecting its growth. Crop management, selection of tolerant suitable varieties. Dr. Asman, Dr. Malik covered that nicely. Apply low salinity at the most sensitive growth stage and higher salinity at other stages. And that actually would be a better option to manage. So you apply the fresh water and at the time the plant is sensitive, and then saline water when the plant is not highly sensitive to saline water, and then apply fresh water close to the stage where there is sensitivity to salinity. And you can see that the salinity actually would be increasing over time. At the end of the season, you can have one big irrigation, surface irrigation, to leach the salts if accumulates to a harmful level for the next crop. Now, for accurate estimation of crop water requirements, why it's important to accurately calculate the crop water requirements? Because more water you add, more saline water you add also more salts and more leaching of nutrients and fertilizers. Also decreasing soil and groundwater qualities, decreasing water productivity, and also you irrigate less area because you are using too much water. And this is example of equipments we used in Water for Crops project. We used Cosmos, we used scintillometer, edicovariance, all these to measure the actual evapotranspiration, which is equivalent to the crop water requirement. And what we found from the measurements compared to Penman-Monteith modified and Penman-Monteith non-modified equations, that these measurements or these instruments give us actual evapotranspiration and the crop water requirements almost half of what commonly used by everyone in the world by this equation of Penman-Monteith, which actually exaggerates the amount of crop water requirements. The using field scale models can also help in salinity management. And we developed SaltMed model. It's freely available and a lot of people using it. And the salinity is, as we know, slow process, and these models are used.
हाफ लीटर तो obsolete होगी.
Sorry? I'll carry on.
Interruption. Yeah.
Salinity is a slow process, and these models are useful for long-term prediction. And also these models have a long-term, can show long-term impact. If using saline water in yield and soil productivity, gives you accurate estimation of leaching and also crop water requirement. And this is the models that we developed, which is freely available, and it can give you the soil moisture distribution, salinity distribution, and dry matter and yield. And also can be used, this model can be used in non-conventional way. You can predict missing parameters you cannot measure, and also can allow you to study the impact of climate change, can also allow you to design the experiment and the best crop rotation and fertilizers management. And also the models can allow you to have a better scheduling and data collection program. And these are the sites where you can download the data and the papers published. And I would like to thank you by end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raghib. A very comprehensive talk. It's very impressive. There's a lot more to learn from you. Thank you. I'll just move on to the next speaker. We are just running out a bit of time, so I just need to catch up. My next speaker is Dr. Fatou. I think she has a bit of issue with her signing up. I'll just move on to Dr. Abdelaziz Harish, who's from Mohammed VI Polytechnic University from Morocco. Over to you. Thank you. Yeah, we can see your screen. Yes, please. Thank you.
Unmute, yeah.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Khalid and comstech for the invitation to this webinar. So quickly, my talk will be about a model crop for biosaline agriculture. Since previous speakers, they talk about biosaline general aspect, etc., and irrigation, water management, etc. So I'm gonna talk here about quinoa, which is a model crop in biosaline agriculture. It's a facultative halophyte crop. I'm gonna present a little bit of success story, some output from a project that was funded by IDRC from Morocco. So my presentation will be a bit technical, so I'm gonna present several outputs related to our project. So the problems and challenges that we are trying here to solve are mainly related to drought, precipitation irregularity. This is a characteristic of a lot of marginal environments: soil and groundwater salinization, low salinity, low soil fertility, low productivity of major staple crop. Dr. Ismahan mentioned that in marginal environment where especially staple crop could not give satisfying yields, so there is a need for alternative crops as quinoa, for example. Some challenges that are related to the crop. So we have mostly in several parts of the world limited availability of genetic material for growing quinoa outside its native environment. Know that there is more than 7,000 accession of quinoa, but most of them are located within Latin America, and there is a kind of sensitive subject about seed transfer from from Latin America to the rest of the world. There is also a limited knowledge of best practice on quinoa and production, and especially here I'm talking about processing. And there is a lack of awareness around nutritional benefits of quinoa. So there is a lot of experience where people are trying to introduce quinoa to a new context or new country or region. And there is a lot of problems related to awareness. People, they don't know about quinoa, they don't know how to use it or how to cultivate it. There is an absence of or lack of marketing channels and appropriate marketing strategy as well. So why quinoa? Because simply quinoa is a rustic crop. It's a salt tolerant crop and also a drought tolerant crop. If you see this this graph, for example, it's about water need, and you can see here that quinoa require a bit half of what is required by most of staple crop. If we see salinity, for example, we found out that 10 decisiemens, which is almost let's say 8 grams per liter of salinity. It is the threshold for quinoa. It means that that the level, starting from this level, the yield is begin to start to reduce. So in terms of nutritional quality, you see here in this table, the quinoa content in terms of elements of minerals. Quinoa present actually the highest rate among other staple crop for most of nutrients, especially minerals here, and also for protein. If we compare, for example, quinoa to other cereals, and to other staple crop, we see that quinoa, protein content is almost 16%. There is some varieties that exceed 20% of protein, which make it actually a very good crop for nutrition as well. Quinoa expansion. So this is a graph that have been presented by Basil, who is a very known scientist in terms of when it comes to quinoa. So you see here that quinoa has been attracting a lot of attention, especially in the last decades, and especially after, the International Year of Quinoa celebrated by FAO. Regarding Morocco, you can see here a chronology actually of the introduction of quinoa to different regions. So in our project, which is, we call it Quinoa Arhamna. Arhamna, it's a region where we have a marginality there, and it's a region that is suffering from water scarcity. It has also a lot of problem with salinity. So we introduced quinoa, and we tested several varieties. Some varieties are coming from ICBA, which are developed within ICBA facilities. Compared to Titicaca, Puno, they are, they are popular varieties, and compared to some local seed that have been introduced earlier, and we can see that ICBA varieties, perform better than other varieties in terms of, irrigation and the impact of amendment. We see that really irrigation help a lot and double actually the production of quinoa for most of varieties. And further, if we add manure or organic amendment, we can increase further, and maximize the yield, which was about more than 3 ton per hectare. In terms of economic analysis, we found out that quinoa, give better margin or net margin compared, for example, to barley and wheat, which are dominating crop in the region. And you can see here, for example, in the net benefits, which is almost 6 times, compared to, to other, cereals. While also, the production costs are also high, and this is because the need, in terms of labor, especially in the processing stage. When it comes, for example, to different scenarios of production, okay, we reduced actually the cost from $2 US per kilo up to 1, just by optimizing, the system, adding irrigation and fertilization, also by introducing mechanization tools as well. So we tried also in this project to develop some post-harvest machine. You know that the most difficult part in quinoa production is the processing. So how to, remove the pericarp or the out layer, that contain saponin. So we need some big machines, some machines, small tools adapted to small farmers as well. So we developed some chilling machines, this one, some winnowing machine, pressure machine. So we try to develop the complete chain of post-harvest. So starting from threshing, winnowing, and then to chilling. We also adapted the combined harvester of normal cereal to harvest as well quinoa, and we had here in this photo a large field of 14 hectares of quinoa that have been harvested using combined harvester. We also studied also the effect of chilling or pearling or removing, the pericarp of quinoa that contain mostly the saponin. We studied actually the effect of chilling nutrient content, and we found out that chilling has no significant impact on macro element when it comes to NPK, Mg, and calcium. However, and also in terms of protein, so there was no impact on protein, since actually this element and protein, they are located mostly in the internal, layers or in the what we call peristem, I think. But for micro element, so we found out that there is a significant reduction, especially when it comes to iron. When it comes to zinc and boron, we had a significant actually reduction, and this was explained by that most of micronutrients are located actually in the pericarp. Also, we evaluated the impact of choline on saponin content, and this is the machine that we developed, and we ran a lot of the mini tests regarding the purlin duration. So you have the machine, but you need to know exactly how much time that you need to to do the purlin in order to have really an optimal level of saponin. We found that the 2 minutes of purlin was enough to reduce saponin content, especially for for Titicaca and Puno varieties. 2 minutes was enough to to reduce from 0.6% to 0.1. Why 0.1 is important here? Because 0.1, it's below the Codex standard rate, which is almost 0.12 percent of saponin content, which is the level in which we can consider quinoa consumable. So it means that if we gonna consume quinoa or market it or valorize it, we need to bring the level of saponin below 0.12%. We also conducted some market study, and we found out, out of a very broad, study and surveys, we found out that the acceptability price or the willingness to pay, for 500 gram of seed package was between 2 and 2.6 USD for 500 package, which is almost $5 USD per kilogram, this is the price in which the Moroccan consumer is willing, to pay for a kilogram of quinoa. Regarding, of course, 2 parameters that are very important: the quality and when, the price is perceived to be high, for example, by the consumers. We worked a lot on quinoa valorization. Smahan mentioned in her presentation some new product out of quinoa, like couscous, which is a famous dish here in North Africa. So we developed a lot of recipes, in terms of Moroccan sweets, bread, and other recipes as well. This is in collaboration, of course, with women cooperatives and in collaboration with some startups that are involved in the project. And actually this product attracted a lot of attention, when we organized some workshop for promotion, etc., which is the next slides. We organized a lot of promotion activities. We invited some influential, people from social media, some famous chef in Morocco, and we participated in international fairs of agriculture. There is one is organized in Morocco.
Thank you, Dr. Abdulaziz. Just turning out of time. So thank you very much. Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting discussion about looking at diversifying crops. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just move on to our next speaker, Professor Steve McGrath from Rothamsted Research Institute. Steve, over to you. Are you able to share your screen, or shall I share my screen? Steve, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I can share my screen. Can you see it?
Okay. Yes, please. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to focus more in my talk on soils and the issue of soil health. This is an area which, you could call it soil health or soil conservation. You could call it soil quality. But I think it's an area which has to be thought about, including not just the crops. We've heard a lot about crops today. I'm going to focus on soils. I can go quickly through this because we've already heard at the beginning about the need for food, fiber, fuel and building materials, and the growth of the world population. So feeding, clothing, housing, all of those people is the really important thing for the future. So what are the major soil threats? Now, we talked today particularly about salinity. This is a report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Soils. Basically, you can see here in world terms, soil erosion, carbon, nutrient imbalance takes a lot of the headlines. But then just after that comes salinity, which is, of course, is the important topic today. It's not worldwide, of course, but there are regions of the world which this is a very important threat to soils. In terms of the future sustainability of soil systems and therefore of cropping systems. So saline soils, again, we've heard already, there are issues related to productivity, and it affects plants in terms of high osmotic stress, which hinders the water used by plants, but also causes nutritional issues in terms of uptake of nutrients and poor physical conditions and reduced crop productivity. So we've heard already from other speakers, the solutions relate to water and salinity control and growing salt-tolerant crops and breeding more salt-tolerant varieties of those crops. However, just to widen out the discussion here, food security long-term relies on healthy soils. And we're not talking just about soil salinization, as I said earlier. There are lots of other threats to the long-term health and security of soils. And soil salinization is one of those. This diagram again from the FAO ITPS report talks about the interactions between these things. And obviously there are a lot of interactions. So if we take, for example, just soil salinization, there are effects on the supply of nutrients, but also on the retention and supply of water, and probably a lot of other items as well. So in terms of the sustainability of systems, and I mean here the soil and the agricultural and the ecological system, we need to think about a lot of these other factors related to soil health and its sustainability. So for example, we get headlines from time to time like this about, we only have 60 years or 100 years left of cropping soils. The question here is it true? And where is the effect the greatest? The picture here actually shows Tanzania, where I've seen this type of very rapid loss of soils due to erosion. That doesn't occur everywhere in the world, obviously, but it's a really big impact on soil loss, soil degradation, and therefore the sustainability of soils and agriculture. These headlines obviously grab the news, but, are they true? I've actually referred quite often to this paper by Montgomery, which looks at global lifespans of soils as being something like 500 to several thousand years, as you can see the top line on the graph for agriculture. I think this is more realistic, but it also illustrates that soils are a finite resource. And so the time that soils will remain productive is very important to the future of agriculture. And it's also important to note that restoring degraded soils is difficult and can also take quite some time. So coming back to the theme for the need for healthy soils, it is incredibly important for not only for agriculture, but for life on Earth. So including things like climate change, water, nutrient cycling, habitats for organisms. There are huge numbers of things which soil sustainability is important for. And so we do have to think about not just, for example, the salinity and salinity control, but also what salinity and its use of biosaline agriculture, what it does more broadly to the soils and the environment. So, for example, here we're talking about there is degradation, but we need to know whether we're using fertilizers efficiently. Now, nitrogen we know is an issue in terms of losses to water, but also gases, some of the greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, but also fertilizers. Phosphate use needs to be sustainable. We know that if we don't use fertilizers efficiently, and the graph in the right-hand corner shows us that if phosphate is not used by the plant and accumulates in the soil, it can actually break through into drainage water, like nitrogen, cause eutrophication. So nutrient use efficiency is important. And also for water and air quality, as I've mentioned, a lot of drinking water has passed through soil, and also things like phosphate can pass through soil, and they affect not only the water, but also the gaseous losses. In terms of biosaline agriculture, we need to know more, I think, about the effect on gaseous losses, which could include some of the nitrogen-containing gases, but also, for example, methane. And then finally, in relation to climate change, carbon is terrifically important, as we know at the moment. And the amounts of carbon in soils are huge in the world. There is estimated 15 gigatons of carbon in the world's topsoils, which is actually 3 times more than in all the vegetation and forests combined. And we need to preserve carbon. So again, I was very encouraged by the comments at the beginning about creating plant productivity, creating biomass, and perhaps also using some of that to maintain carbon in soils. And the current climate warming may accelerate if we don't take steps to increase the storage of carbon in soils, and therefore not releasing so much into the atmosphere. So coming back to the FAO report, the 4 greatest needs are sustainable soil management. And by that, I mean all of the issues that I've talked about. Stabilization of soil organic carbon, increase the efficiency of nutrients, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, and to improve knowledge about the current state and trends. I've put trends in red here because actually in most cases we don't know the trends very well. And I was very pleased to hear again from Ms. Mani before about the updating of the soil salinity map, because this I think is an important point. Monitoring is almost never done and is often not done regularly, and it's not done enough on a local scale to help many farmers. So we need to think about how soil salinity is monitored on small and large scales. We need rapid and cheap methods to do that. Standardized sampling procedures, again, been mentioned, some of the analytical procedures needed. And this needs to be linked with, GPS, mobile technology, computing, and rapid links to other data. We've had, in terms of work that we're doing in Africa, there is a company called ISDA, and ISDA is basically taking existing data, for example, satellite data. So these images on the right include things like land cover, net primary productivity, soil maps and climate, etc., and put all that information together to predict properties like salinity, and to do this regularly. So monitoring, I think, is a very, very important issue. Okay, I'd like to stop there, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Steve. Very interesting discussion around soil health, because soil is, without soil, there won't be any life on the planet. So thank you very much. Very interesting topic to ponder on. Thank you. I'll just move on to our next speaker. We go to Africa now this time. So we'll have our colleague Dr. Fatou Bojang from National Agriculture Research Institute, Gambia. So over to you, Dr. Fatou. I'll share the screen so that you'll be able to see. I'll just quickly show the screen here, please. Thank you. Dr. Fatou, over to you.
Good morning, Khalid. Good morning. I'm Fatou Bojang from the Gambia. The impact of
Please come close to the mic. We have a slight issue with the voice. Thank you very much.
Hello, are you hearing me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. I'll just move to the next slide now.
Okay. I said I'm from the Gambia, presenting on its impacts of saline intrusion on the arable lands of the Gambia. First of all, the introduction. The Gambia belongs to a Sahelian climate depending on agriculture as a source of livelihood among rural population. Agricultural production employs around 75% of our population and contributes 30% or more to our GDP. Almost all 3/4 of the foods that we consume among the rural farmholds or farmers comes from agriculture. Rice is our staple food in the Gambia, and we have different areas or categories where we planted our rice. We have lowland, we have rain-fed, irrigated, freshwater, and mangroves. The consequence of high soil production slow is
I think you're cutting out. Maybe internet issue. Dr. Fatou, we are unable to hear you. I think you have issues with the internet. So what I'll do is, if it's not going to work, I'll share your slides with the participants. They will be having a chance to see it. Thank you. So maybe I just quickly, I think there's a serious issue with the internet. So I'm just going to stop here. And thank you very much, Dr. Fatou. I think we have issue with the internet. We'll just move on to our next speaker. In this case would be Dr. Kate Nakas. She's from Virgin University, Amsterdam, from Netherlands. She would be talking about how to achieve multiple sustainable goals with saline agriculture. I'll just stop here sharing. Over to you. Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Hello, good afternoon. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully that works. Yeah, you should be able to see it right now.
Yes, we can see it. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for invitation to this webinar. My name is Kate Nekac and I work at the Vrije University in Amsterdam. I also conduct my research within the Interact North Sea Region Sulfur Project. Which is a cooperation.
There is some international issue create.
Okay. So.
Hello.
Hello. Can you still hear me?
Yes, can I?
So we would just move on to the next speaker. So we will maybe have a afterward your talk if we can. Otherwise, I'll share your slide.
Internet connection. You said
Thank you.
Connection is very poor here.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Kate, for the disruption.
No problem. Hopefully connection stays good, at least for a bit. So yes, I also work in the Interact North Sea Region Sulfur Project, which is cooperation between 13 partners in 6-7 countries around North Sea, where we work on different aspects of salinization, ranging from the field experiments to socio-economic impact on which I focus. Today, I would like to talk a bit more about saline agriculture as a solution to achieve multiple SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals. But starting from the beginning, salinity is a worldwide problem that is increasingly popular in media, and that comes in different forms, ranging from challenges for ecosystems, for example, in Bangladesh, through the problem for the food security, for example, in California, to also growing crops in France, but also recent innovations in new salt-tolerant crops, for example, in the Netherlands. And today I would like to also present a little bit about our research, which focus on mapping salinity, but also looking at connections between all these different problems. So as I said, it's a global challenge. And also as Dr. Ismahane has shown, there are different efforts to map salinity worldwide. We have also undertaken this effort within our research, and we came up with the results that soil salinity worldwide can be classified as known and slightly saline, but also moderately and highly saline. And those grounds seem most promising as grounds for the future experiments and also for the economy. Multiple countries ranging from Bangladesh, Europe, Africa, but also in Australia, for example. There are also multiple sustainable development goals that aim to address all the challenges for the sustainable future. I think that this concept is quite known for you, so I will not go through all of them. But we've decided to look closer at saline agriculture as a solution, which can help to address multiple sustainable development goals. We've done that by using two different methods. First, we looked at the DIPSI framework, and then we also conducted some interviews. But first, looking at the saline agriculture, what do we understand by it? By saline agriculture, we mean growing salt-tolerant crops under saline conditions, but also using a proper soil and water management to provide solutions for food and water security and address the climate change. So even in this sentence, we can see that there are already multiple issues that we can address as a socio-economic researchers. We have growing salt-tolerant crops, but we have also solutions for food and water security. And finally, we have climate change, which is an umbrella bridging together multiple sustainable development goals. Then we looked at different research. We scanned more than 70 different articles with focus on salinization to look at which drivers are most common, at which pressures appear also most often, then to look at the states, impacts, and responses. It turned out that we can group them into certain categories. This was done through the semi-automated keyword analysis, and we came up with the drivers such as agriculture and population growth, and of course, indirectly climate change and natural processes. We also came up with a number of different pressures, and here, for example, water supply shortage, which was also mentioned in the presentation before, or soil fertility. The state, of course, is the increased salinization, but is also accompanied with land degradation in some other forms and loss of biodiversity. As it comes to the impacts, we noted that especially economic impacts were quite dominant. For example, economic burden for the local community, but also decline in the crop yields. As it comes to the responses, there were a couple of them. Introduction of salt-tolerant crops was quite popular. We had also water management solutions and, for example, agroforestry. Then we decided to compare the results of this meta-analysis with the interviews. So we asked 10 experts in salinization management, and we conducted interviews focusing on opportunities and barriers that saline agriculture presents. The results were strikingly similar between these two methods. So it turned out that there's a couple of SDGs addressed with the second SDG. So no hunger being the most predominant because it's linked to the agriculture. But the second one was the economic development, so SDG number 2. Then we had some differences. For example, in the interviews, SDG number 6, so the clean water was quite important one. Whereas in the literature analysis, it turned out that SDG 12, so sustainable consumption and production, and SDG 15, so life on land, was chosen as the third and the fourth one. So to round it up, the key SDGs for sustainable, saline agriculture are zero hunger and decent work and economic development. They are very strongly related to saline agriculture in both methods that we used. But there's also a number of other SDGs which can be addressed using saline agriculture as a method. What is more, we formulated a few recommendations that we would like to share with you. Of course, saline agriculture can help to foster achieving food security and economic development. Especially, it can be useful for farmers in creating workplaces, also increasing yields with more than conventional crops, and preventing economic and climate migrations, which is currently an issue in a few countries. But we have also some recommendations for the future projects, which also, as Dr. Ismahana has mentioned, should focus on education of unprivileged target groups, so address the inequalities, but also address the gender equality, so education of women and providing chances for them. And finally, that this will help us to create and build a community thinking of stakeholders. That can help us to merge all these different efforts that appear in the literature and all these lines of research that we work on, from crop innovations, soil science, water management, to bring it all together and to create the synergy effect, taking into account all different SDGs and global problems. With this, I would like to finish my presentation. Thank you very much for the attention. And if there are any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kate. It's very interesting to hear in terms of how sustainable development goals are being affected. I'm sure with COVID on head as well, it's going to have another pressure on achieving sustainable development goals. So thank you so much. We would be very keen to work together with you. So I'll move on to our next speaker. Thank you so much again. I'm just conscious of the time because usually these webinars should not be more than 1 hour, but this one is 2 hours. So I want to finish dot in 2 hours. I'll just move on to our next speaker, Dr. Arfa Tahir. She's from Lahore College of Women, University in Pakistan. Dr. Arfa, please share your screen. Thank you. It's on dot. Yes, we can see your slides. Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear. Yes, please. We can hear. Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid and Comstech, for providing us such a forum for very valuable information. I am Professor Dr. Arfa Tahir from Lahore College for Women University, Lahore, and I am working for the women empowerment through different environmental sustainable solutions. And today I am presenting carbon sequestration of carbon through profitable hydroponics. Hydroponics is a technology of farming where plants can be grown in nutrient-fortified water instead of in soil. As other speakers told, that we have many challenges. Human world population will reach 9 billion by the year 2050, and food security is one of the pivotal themes of the new millennium, and similarly, a very serious threat to our planet. Acute food shortages from climate-related events such as flooding, irregular rains, droughts, and high temperatures. These all challenges we are facing in our country, Pakistan. We need innovative agriculture due to different challenges. Our farmer is facing different problems like progressive drop of fertile soil surface, The intensification of the production cycles and the monoculture approach favored the development of new pathogens. And recently we faced the biggest challenge of locust. The strict dependency of traditional agriculture on water availability in an age of drastic climate changes, desertification, makes the scenario very complex. Many other problems which we are facing, like salinity, drought conditions, polluted water environment, pathogens, shrinking of arable land, sandy, rocky, and gravelly soils, inherent risk of uncontrollable factors, and undernourished or overnourished crops, very important factor, which for this we are facing malnutrition in our community. In a recent research, we found and tested about 2 million terrestrial samples collected from throughout the Punjab has proved that nitrogen has gone down to 98% in our soils, phosphorus up to 90%, potassium up to 53%, and similarly other nutrients has gone down in our soil. Environmental solutions are more relevant if they are closer to the source of the problem and they do not compromise profitability in a developing world. I am presenting hydroponic as a solution to food security and urban pollution. I will talk about my city, Lahore, the second largest and most polluted city in Pakistan, has been plagued by a heavy blanket of smoke. The ever-growing urbanization and industrialization have contributed to the worsening air quality of the city. The urbanization process goes along with increasing urban poverty and polluted environment, allowing food insecurity. The hydroponic technique of plant growth is conducive to urban farming, making it a favorable choice for creation of carbon sinks closer to the pollution-emitting industries in larger cities. I am presenting hydroponic as a carbon capture technology because biomass or food production in a soilless culture or environment massively accelerate growth and carbon dioxide absorption, so no pollution. And land previously needed for agriculture can be used to grow timber, so locking more carbon dioxide. So hydroponic technique can capture carbon. Urban carbon sequestration can make, hydroponic can make significant environmental contribution to the ecological system that manages the urban environment. It captures dust and polluted air, increase the humidity. It contributes to the reduction of the discharge of carbon dioxide. Profitable, why hydrocarbon is profitable? Urban environmental initiatives aimed at directing reduction of carbon dioxide from the urban air can only be successful if profitable cultivation of plant is promoted. Hydroponics will enable doorstep availability of fruits and vegetables, diversified and healthy fresh and fruits and vegetables, without long transportation chains, which add to pollution, adding income to poor families, opportunities for the poor populations, and creating many job opportunities for poor population. Urban hydroponics is a solution to food security. Urban hydroponics present an opportunity to extend food production to cities. This could enhance food security, particularly in developing countries, and allow adaptation to growing urbanization. This technique is profitable because it produces a better crop in lesser amount of time, enhancing the revenues for environmentally conscious entrepreneurs. Urban hydroponics technology for plant production reduces our water needs, food health risks, environmental pollution, and cultivation space. Hydroponics is a water smart technology. Less than 1% of the water commonly used to grow vegetables in conventional farming is used. Most water is recyclable. It is close to fertilization, so no pollution. Out of 1 million, in another study in Punjab, out of 1 million agricultural wells surveyed, water from 66% of them was found to be unfit for agricultural use. Hydroponics is we need hydroponics because it gives continuous production, require less space, high productivities. Quality of hydroponics is much better than hydroponic technology is light and clean since they do not require cultural operations like ploughing, weeding, soil fertilization, and crop rotation. It also removes the negative impact of conventional agricultural farming, like high and inefficient use of water is avoided, high concentration of nutrients and pesticide is avoided, soil degradation accompanied by erosion, stackable systems, so no space constraints. I think Dr. Kate or someone talked about malnutrition. Biofortification of crops can easily be achieved by hydroponics. We can efficiently biofortified our crops with iodine, selenium, or other micronutrients. And consumers also demand vegetables of fortified minerals and bioactive content. It is on rise. Biofortification of vegetables with essential micronutrients such as iron is an efficient mean to address the human micronutrient deficiency, which is popular known as hidden hunger.
Sorry, Dr. Tahir, Dr. Arfa Tahir, we just have to stop. Sorry, just running out of time. So thank you so much. It's such an interesting topic, so we can go in more details. So lovely presentation. So I will share your slides afterward. I'll just move on to our next speaker because I want to finish in like next 20 minutes thoughts. Our next speaker is Professor Radwan Shokrallah. He's an environmental horticulturist from Hassan University, Morocco. So we are now in Morocco. Over to you, Professor. Thank you. Can you hear us? Yes, please. Share your screen.
Yeah, just a second.
Thank you. So we have, I would say, 10 minutes for you to finish if you can, or maybe if you can save some time, because I want the last 10 minutes for questions. I request others, please, who are not talking, please switch off your mics.
Okay.
So, I have a.
Okay.
So yes, please go ahead.
Can I?
Yes, please, yeah. Your time is started.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Okay, I will concentrate. My talk will be.
Sorry, you guys, I think there's some disruption. I'll ask other police people to switch off their mics. Yeah, so there's some disruption happening. Please, okay, yes, please, Doctor. Thank you. Yeah, you are mute. Doctor, you are mute. Dr. Shokrallah, you are mute. I should be able to unmute you. Let me see if I can unmute you. You are mute. You are still mute.
Now?
Yes.
You hear me?
Yeah, I've got 8 minutes now.
No problem. Just tell me, could you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you, Nas.
So, to be fast, I will be, as I said, concentrating on NENA region for basically non-conventional water and particularly wastewater. The reason why I'm concentrating on NENA region because basically most of this country are under severe water scarcity and 40% of the population is already living under condition of absolute water scarcity. So, and we know that agriculture water share about 85% of the water resource. So why I'm choosing wastewater? Even wastewater, it's a saline water. Most of the time, the EC of wastewater vary between 2.5 to around 6 decibels, depending on the cities and the type of industry that you have. For example, in Agadir, we have about 5 to 6 decibels during the period of fish industry. So some major question that I will be really responded to, what are the potential of wastewater in the NENA region and why wastewater reuse is important, and also how to make water recycling sustainable. Basically, up to now, we have around 15 billion meter cube, where only around 3.5 billion is treated as well as reused. So the major country in the MENA region that is using most of the treated wastewater is Egypt, as about 70% of the region. And we have also some wastewater use in Jordan, as well as in Syria and in Tunisia. So as you can see from here that almost 47% of the wastewater is not treated in the MENA region. So there is a potential which is already lost. And even from the treated wastewater, we have over, I would say, around 28%, which is reused, and which means that very few, even with the treated wastewater, is not used. So why we are interested in the urban treated wastewater, say, is compared to desalination, the cost effective and energy is very cheaper than desalinized water. So we can also save energy and increase the water supply and mitigate the impact of climate variability and climate change. Also, the reuse of treated means making more productive assets. And also it's possible to recover from the treatment plant energy and nutrient, which is one of the major important things that we have in wastewater. And we have a different reuse opportunity with the social, economic, and environment values. So where the treated wastewater is really used in the MENA or MENA region, basically there are more, it's more used in agriculture, and I could give the example of Jordan, which is actually 90% of the treated wastewater is reused in agriculture. We have Egypt, and I'll give some example later on. But if you go in the GCC countries, most of the treated wastewater is used for landscaping and for tourist facilities. We know that most of the wastewater, most of it, it's lost as outfall in the sea, and this is the case of Morocco, 60% of the potential, and the case of Lebanon, which is 80%. So also there is another constraint, which I will talk about it later on. It's the acceptance by the people to reuse treated wastewater. The technology, if you go to very low income countries, they use a very, I would say, extensive system like lagoons and infiltration, percolation. And if you go to much more rich country, you are using basically very high technology. And sometimes if you go to Kuwait, for example, you're getting up to 4 quaternary treatment using reverse osmosis, which I think it's a waste of nutrients that you lose when you go through reverse osmosis of treated wastewater. Because the beauty of wastewater is the nutrient, and particularly the major element and the micronutrient, and also some organic amino acid and substance that stimulate the root system. The main constraint that we have shown in those different countries, financial, because it needs money to make a plant. There is some problem with the institutional setup, policy in terms of guidelines, technical for maintaining basically the what we call the plant, and this is very important. And what is very common in most of this country, which is basically it's the monitoring. That's a major constraint for the reuse of treated wastewater, beside acceptance and awareness that we have to do in order to reuse more treated wastewater. So quality parameters are set in most of the MENA region country. However, few have the capacity and means to meet these standards. And if you go to Jordan, which is a good example for the reuse of treated wastewater, we have a safety control system. And the most problem and constraint that we have for some time for reusing treated wastewater is sometimes salinity, as well some clogging system. And I give the example of the Gulf here, for example, in Agadir, where we have in a problem of clogging, and you can see it here, both for the sprinklers use for the irrigation as well for the pump that could be affected. So some good example of using treated wastewater in Egypt, particularly in Aswan, and using for basically most of it is for trees. And also one of the good things is jatropha, with very economic crops that could be used for treated wastewater, producing around 4,000 liters of oil and also 8 tons of material residue. Other very common that is used now more in, especially in most of the common use in the cities, is to use it for producing ornamental plants. And this is a good example that has been developed in Kuwait. And also for landscaping, especially golf courses, where treated wastewater now has been accepted. And even we have seen private companies investing in reusing treated wastewater for the golf courses. A good example is Marrakesh in Morocco, but also if you go to Dubai, you can see most of the green has been using treated wastewater to make the beauty of the cities. So lesson learned and recommendation, we need to integrate the water quality in wastewater reuse. We need to strengthen the existing network and institution implementation of strategy and policy to promote the reuse. And also we have to strengthen public-private partnership, which is a good example that I cited, which is in Marrakesh. Lesson learned also, selection of treating system based on the type of possible use. A good example is, if you go to Egypt, they don't go up to tertiary treatment. They use primary treatment and use it for forestry, which is a good example for the reuse. We need to diversify the different use. The cost-benefit analysis should be included in the socio-economic and environment aspect. And we need a constant dialogue between all relevant partners. And also we need capacity building and sharing of knowledge. And this is what we're doing right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Radwan, Doctor. You just managed perfectly manage the time. Thank you so much. I'll just move on to our last speaker, Dr. Munawar Kazmi. Please start, sir. Okay. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Munawar Raza Kazmi, who's the representative from the Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research, ACIR. So they're doing interesting work in Pakistan. So over to you, Dr. Munawar. Please unmute yourself and on your mark. Munawar, you're mute. Yes, you're mute. Yes, you're mute. You're mute. Yes.
Sorry. Thank you very much, the organizers, and for this time. I know I have only 5 minutes. I just want to leave one message to all my senior colleagues. I'm not an expert in salinity, but I just wanted to share with you a couple of slides. One is that our salinity has been a big issue in Pakistan, as my seniors have already told. 7 million hectares affected by salinity and sodicity in the country. This is the National Policy Dialogue, which was held in 2017. And the most important thing is the secondary salinization, which is due to the poor quality groundwater. And then sea intrusion in the districts of Lower Sindh, where we have this big issue. So what are the lessons learned for us based on a review which we did as a ACIR study? We found that groundwater and salinization are, we all know, is very closely linked. And then groundwater management in Pakistan is very weak and a neglected segment. Then in order to leach down the salts available on the surface, availability, quantity and timing of the surface water is a big issue for our farmers. And lastly, policies, laws and regulation, we all know have a big a problem for all of us. So just want to remind all, as my seniors have already shared here, that we started with the Sitiana pilot project, and you can see, you can name it. We started back in 1989 with the help of CSRO, NIAB, NIBG, NIBG was not there at the time, University of Wales, University of Western Australia. So we all started that, and we produced a handbook, which we are going to produce the second edition soon in the coming project, which I will be sharing. So the basic work is already there, and we have found that all those techniques, adaptation strategies, you name it, have been tried in Pakistan. So we find that the issue in Pakistan is not with the technology or the techniques, it is the adaptability. So now we are going to launch a new project where we are going to use the non-formal education specialists to engage with the communities and to find out the bright spots, and then make, we are calling this project as living with salinity in the Indus Basin region. And this is what the national water policy of the government of Pakistan is already saying, that we need to have a new approach that can tackle the problem in a more holistic and the basin level manner. The isolated efforts here and there can work, but for a sustainable, and as somebody has said, that linking them with the sustainable development goals, we need to look for a bigger picture and work together. So the coming project, which is about to be launched by 1st of November from ACIAR, is about living with salinity. It's a 10-year program, but we are starting with 2.5 years commitment on ground, and I'm happy to share details whenever somebody needs, and we look forward for all of your guidance and support to complete this project. Thank you very much. I look forward, and thank you very much again, Khalid, and all the organizers for providing me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Munawar. Perfect, excellent, and timing wise, you've done a fantastic job. So yes, we saved 5 minutes. Well done, everybody. So I will ask maybe one or two questions, and then I'll ask Professor Malik to conclude this seminar at the end, Professor Qasim Malik. So just maybe 1 or 2 questions. Raise your hand and then we'll unmute you. Any question anyone want to ask? So maybe I have a question, but if no one is going to ask. So maybe I just jump in. So let me see if somebody has asked in the bottom there. So my question would be to Dr. Raghib here, because Dr. Raghib has done fantastic work in sort of solutions to saline agriculture, the problem faced by salinity. So I've been hearing a lot of time with sprinkler irrigation, you get salts on onto the ground. And when the water EC is high, and if you have drip irrigation, then there's a clogging. So how you sort the issue of clogging in drip irrigation, Dr. Raghib? Please unmute yourself. You are mute. Dr. Raghib, you are mute. Maybe I can unmute
you. Cannot unmute yourself.
Yes, I have unmute you now. Yes, please.
Yeah, the host is mute you. Okay, so well, there is now a specific drippers, and we have been involved in a project, water for crops, where the group in Montpellier University, they have been working on drippers to reduce their clogging and also to regulate the pressure, self-compensating pressure. There are some clever drippers now. They can deal with that clogging a lot easier than in the past. That's for the drip irrigation. For the sprinkler irrigation, nowadays you have a low-level sprinklers. They don't really spray over the leaves. And you have center pivot system with low-level nozzles, also designed for using saline and wastewater. For that reason, they also reduce the amount of water up to 30% from the overhead sprinklers. And the subsurface irrigation by drip actually has also another benefit. that it keeps a higher moisture content in the root zone, and it would allow the plant to tolerate even higher salinity because of the dilution effect of high moisture in the root zone. So the plant can tolerate more salinity by the drip subsurface than by the surface drip irrigation.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just running out of time. I'll go back to, there's one question from Aruj, but I think we are running out of time. I'll move back to Professor Kausar Malik. Please just do the conclusion of this event. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience and taking time. Thank you. Over to Dr. Kausar Malik.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Khaled. And thank you, everybody, for a very patient participation in this webinar. I think it has been most useful. And especially for me, you know, it's a kind of a going through the memory lane. And you see, because I started my research career from salinity, and I've still stuck on to it, you see, you know. And I forgot to mention ACIR, you know. I mean, ACIR had been the first agency to come up, and we in late 70s and 80s, early 80s, you see, we had the first project related to eucalyptus, and that was the one which, and also they had helped us to formulate the biosaline agriculture technology, you see, and Nico Marker and all these guys had been coming so often to Pakistan, to Faisalabad, and you know, I appreciate all of them, you see. And you see, living with salinity is a very old slogan, you see, you know, and we have been also talking about it. Important thing is that we have to implement everything, you see, you know. I mean, the technology is there, and we tried our best for a farmer's participatory approaches. And I think the same kind of approach Nawar has been talking about. And such seminars, such webinars are extremely important to create awareness, not only among the farming community, but among our scientific community as well. And there is so much technology that can be dovetailed into biosaline agriculture, you see, because we started by screening all the plants for the salt tolerance and all that. But now there are so many other technologies also, and also halophytes can be a kind of a cash crop also, and so we as we know, or whatever, it's difficult to pronounce the name, but all these crops and all these products are extremely useful and economical. You see, we had shown all the economics of biosaline agriculture as well. You see, for example, I mean, the land which I showed you in my slide, it was totally salt affected, is now converted into a lush green area and has been taken over by the government, and they are establishing their first knowledge park at that land, you see. So that indicates that you have increased the value of the land in addition to improving the ecology and environment, you see. So I thank all the organizers. I thank the Dr. Khaled Mahmood, Dr. Ikrar Khan for organizing this webinar, and they've been organizing other webinars. You see, the 9th in their series of webinars related to agriculture and the policy issues, you see. So I thank them and I wish them best of luck, and I thank all the participants for participating in this webinar. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Look after